Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 269 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is authenticity. Our quote of the day comes to us from Brene Brown. Being ourselves means sometimes having to find the courage to stand alone. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to first connect with today's guest. We immediately hit it off, and I'm honored to have him on our show. Johnny Elsasser is an incredibly successful podcast host, and he is one of the most authentic people I know. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Johnny, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Hey, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you being here. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
Of course.
So we actually just recorded on your podcast, which was a blast, and you're actually the fourth or fifth person that I've done back to back. So it's always a pretty neat dynamic. But so as you know, the number one objective of our show is to just motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you yourself have either a no quit story or a really challenging time that tested you, where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Oh yeah. So in my background a little bit. Definitely quite a few times, and I think I could be just like many of the people you've had on this podcast. Which one do you want to hear about? But I would say that there was probably one of the hardest times was when actually a lot of people would think that I'd talk about when I was in special operations, which that was really tough times for not quitting, because obviously you wanted to be there, but it was incredibly hard. But actually what it was when I got out of the military and I got out of doing protection, I came home from all of that, and then I was living in normal society. And most of us that come back from that world and we come into normal society, we really struggle with the fact that, there's no sense of purpose anymore in a lot of ways. So guys get stuck into drinking, they get into bad situations, they go down dark paths. And I was really struggling with, at the time, my ex-wife now, but at the time we were really struggling with our relationship, and I was really struggling to find out where I fit in and what I was doing, because the purpose was gone. What I used to do wasn't there anymore. And it was hard to rest who I became as a man from special operations on who I was supposed to be in the normal society. And so a lot of what created who I was as a man started to come into question, like, how is that serving me now? And so there was a time there that I could have easily just gone down that dark path of doing drinking, and I started to get into it more and more on the weekends and stuff, and I started to just do pointless things where I had no drive, and I was just kind of living every day to day monotonously. And while that might be anticlimactic, I think that that's a realization that a lot of guys have in society today, is that's the easy way out. So I had the potential to really fall into this general consensus of average and of below average, to be honest, and of monotony and comfort in the sense that I was no longer being true to myself, and comfort in the sense of I was no longer trying to be better or impact anybody in any positive way. So to that, it was very easy to get stuck in that. And I had a hard conversation with myself, and I realized the day that I had to let my wife at the time know that relationship was no longer serving me, and it was no longer serving us as people, and we were bringing out the worst in each other. And then I also had to have a rough conversation with myself that, I'm digging my own hole. I'm becoming the worst version of myself that I could have ever thought I'd be. And when you have to really call yourself out like that, it's a bad day, because of the sense that it's hard to open up to somebody else about that and to say, hey, what do I do now? And you have to come up with those solutions on your own, because you're the only one that knows how dark it's getting for you. So when I had to do a deep dive into those conversations with myself, it was a day that I realized that, I had to hold myself accountable to a standard I was comfortable with, and I had to become the man that I was proud to look at in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, you can get rid of everything in your life, but you can't get rid of yourself. And you have to wake up looking back in the mirror saying, hey, man, I love that guy. I respect him and I'm proud of him. And when you don't have that, it's a scary day. And that's what I was experiencing. That was a time that probably one of the hardest times that I could have easily quit and started being something I wasn't authentic with, and started being somebody that made, virtually no impact in alignment with who he is.
I love that, and I appreciate you sharing what you did, and I think what you talked about, looking in the mirror, is something that we often talk about, that self-accountability mirror. And I think the reality, and you said it perfectly, is you can remove a lot of people and things from your life, but you definitely can't remove yourself. And the flip side of that is, you may be able to stretch the truth to a friend, to a spouse, to a manager, but the reality is, when you look in that mirror, whether it's the morning or the night, that person looking back at you, you can't trick them. You can tell a wife that, I was just having a beer or two, or I made those 25 sales calls, and maybe your manager believes you, but when you look in that mirror, there's nobody else looking back at you other than yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, and it's important to know that, like, those are the darkest times when you can't figure out what it is that's affecting you and what it is that's causing you to be that guy that you're not happy with. So at the end of the day, when you get kind of into those weeds of who you are, the truth behind all of your actions. The things that you say, and the person you're showing up as, and that person's authenticity, that person's uncomfortableness, if that's a word, that person's insecurities, and like you said it perfectly, you can't hide from that. And when you realize that, especially as a man that came from the world that I came from, these high octane lives, like, that's a really scary place to be in when you're not sure how you're waking up in the morning.
No, I think that is super important. And to your point, when you come from your past world, like you said, is it's a very different real life and new normal that you come back to. So I appreciate you sharing and touching on how you did. I think it was really authentic. So question I always ask is and as I said to you before, is I think it's a little bit cheesy when somebody reads a guest's 6-paragraph bio. So if you could just quickly sum up, who you are and what you do today to our listeners.
Yeah, brother. So I appreciate you for having me on here, and I appreciate you opening up this story. But so right now, I definitely have taken my past, and I've kind of used that to be an anchor for men to look at me and say, hey, I can respect him, and I can trust this guy to give me the information that I feel is helpful for my life. And so I've taken that, and now I've packaged that into a self-development style, or self-improvement, as you like to, the improvement movement, right?
Yes.
But package that into a self-improvement container where I'm helping men kind of look at the demons in their lives, look at their blueprint, what was given to them, what is not authentic with them, what's not aligned with them. I help them find that out, and then we dig into a lot of what helps them to be that best version of themselves showing up. So that's how I'm showing up in the world today, and using the background that I've created in my life, some of those tough things that I've done to create that respectability across the board with a lot of men out there.
No, I think it's really neat how you're doing that. And I think from your military background, I think obviously you touch on a lot of things that probably a lot of men and women need in their life, as far as just how you deal with those demons and your past and become that best version of yourself. So an interesting question I ask everybody, and I'm kind of curious for your answer, is if you had to define yourself, but you could only use one word, what word would you pick?
That's a great one. And I know this is probably maybe one that you hear commonly, but authentic. I'm very proud of being authentic. And that's just one word that I think really sums me up, because even authentic to a fault. And sometimes there's disregard and authenticity for people's feelings and not in a malicious way, but just being honest. So I would say that authentic's definitely a word that sticks with me.
No, and we have heard it quite often, but knowing you as I do now, and some of the conversations we've had over the last few days, I think that that's a perfect word for you to choose, and I think it fits you and who you are as well. And I wanted to kind of tee up a question for your podcast, because I had the honor of being on your podcast. Just wonder if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about the show and also where they can find it as also.
Yeah, man. So you can find it anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. It's called The Art of Masculinity, and it's been a passion project of mine. As I was special operations, I've had a lot of special operations men on there, and basically we open up kind of this environment that men are supposed to be tough and not talk about their emotions and not talk about their struggles. But I get a lot of special operations guys on there that talk about those struggles that they went through in their lives, that talk about the things that crippled them and put them in these dark emotional states. And there's it's not just special operations guys that I get on there. I get on world renowned authors. We have pro athletes. We have business moguls. So a lot of different people, but it's a lot of different people opening up about the biggest times that they've struggled with not only who they were, but their masculinity as well. Some of the places that they've found it hard to show up as that true, authentic man.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think to your point about the people you have on, it's not just who they are, whether athletes, former military people, but it's diving into those challenging times. And I think so many people look at other people's successes and the highlight reels, and what they don't realize is it's all that happens behind the scenes. So I think, again, being a guest on your show was such an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I think you being here, it's awesome to return the favor. So one of the things we often dive into is the importance of self-improvement and just becoming a better version of yourself, whatever or however you define yourself. And I'm curious if you have a morning routine that you swear by.
Absolutely, I do. And I'm a big proponent of the science behind improving yourself. So people that aren't familiar with, say, Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Bruce Lipton, two people I hold in very high regard, and the science behind what they've done as people in their lives, but also as influencers and also as doctors, really, really special. So my morning routine is absolutely, I get up in the morning and I will do a series of breath work. So I have, obviously Wim Hof is one that a lot of men resonate with because the dude's just bad. But then there's another guy out of Norway that trained under Wim Hof and has what he calls connected breathing, which is a little slower paced than Wim Hof, but I've really come to love it. And so I'll alternate between a few rounds of that, which is like 30 breaths in, and then you can hold, and then you release, and then you hold again, 30 breaths in, release, hold at the bottom, and then take one big breath in, hold for 10 seconds, and then start over. So I do that for about 3 iterations, and then I do journaling in a gratitude journal with my wife. We actually have a shared journal, and we say things that we're grateful for about each other from the day before, and it could be something as small as, making dinner or cleaning the kitchen, to something incredibly big as, showing up for you in an emotional way. We're very honest with each other that way. And then I also read at least like 10 pages of a solid book that I'm reading, whatever it is. So it sets my day up for a huge amount of success. And that morning routine gets me into an emotional state where I'm, drawing in a lot of positive energy instead of showing up with like negative, drawn out energy.
I love that. So got to follow up with that is speaking of books, is there anything that you're currently reading or perhaps you've read recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Yes. So one of my favorite books of all time is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it was probably one of the biggest life changers for me. That's been a huge influencer in the way that I've looked at how we can rewire the pre-wiring that's in our subconscious. And then there's another book, if people haven't really dove into self-development, the book that I really got introduced to that started me down this journey was Excuses Be Gone by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And just a phenomenal book, because the fact of the matter is he speaks in a tone that really just calls you out. And again, you can't run from your own subconscious. You can't run from your own psyche. So as you're reading the book, you're like, oh crap, like I can't run from this. Like this is real. So it's a really, really awesome book that he put together. And one of the ones that I hold in high regard is starting off a self-development journey for sure.
Oh, it's awesome. Excuses Be Gone is a great book. I've read that, but I've not read the other one, so I appreciate that. And selfishly, I always ask that question, and the reality is obviously we're trying to add value to listeners, but I always end up taking a bunch of notes, and there's always a book or two every single week when I interview people that I add to my list. So I appreciate you touch on that. So if you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself only one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, man. I would tell him that your environment changes your cells. And what that means is that regardless of what you believe you're inherently born with or what you believe is inherent within you from what you were raised with, you have the choice to change that. And you have the choice to change that by your perception of what's happening externally to you. So that's what I would tell them, man, because that's where I think a lot of power is. And when you change the perception, you change the outcomes of a lot of things. And then you ultimately change the environment that you're sitting in, which then allows you to expand on yourself down to a genetic and cellular level, but also to a mind frame and a mindset.
I love that. That's really powerful. If I had the opportunity to grant you dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I often think about this because there's some selfish, really fun ones I would love to have. And then there's some, there's the ones that you're like, oh, but man, that would be so prophetic and that would be so important to have that. So if you were to ask me, having dinner, if you could grant me with anybody out there, I would probably want to have dinner with Immanuel Kant. And he was the philosopher who came up with the Copernican theory, which was a revolutionary theory on philosophy and the ultimate freedom or lack of that in which we have. So, yeah, that would be, I don't know that I would want Socrates, but I would love to have dinner with Immanuel Kant for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I would want Socrates either. Not that it wouldn't be an amazing dinner, but I think I'd be so intimidated in some ways that I would just probably ask like yes or no questions, and I'd leave and say that I felt like I completely missed the ball on that one.
Yeah.
So you have a course actually coming out, I believe, as of this recording, the week this comes out. So I wanted to just ask if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners a little about that so those that are interested can maybe follow up and join that course.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate you kind of opening the door for me on that because I just feel so passionate about this course and giving it to everybody that I want as many men as possible to sign up. Unfortunately, I can only grab 12 because that's the best that I feel like I can serve at one time. So we start out identifying that blueprint I was referring to a little bit back in the episode here. And we identify that blueprint of basically your identity, your masculine identity, where it came from. And then we identify what you own and what was given to you. And we identify then the blueprint in which you want to have. And then we identify the pieces of your masculine identity that you are aligned with. And we move from that to a couple weeks of diving into some visualization of your current life, some visualization of what your future would look like if you showed up as that man. And we also start to delete some of your old habits. Then we get into deleting habits. We get into rewiring some old pre-wiring that has bypassed your prefrontal cortex. And then we dive into approaches and tools that are going to help you succeed as that man moving forward. So that way, when some of those old habits come back into play or some of those old scenarios start to come up, you're able to address them with these new strategies and tools that we give you in the last couple weeks of the course. And it's all about bringing that best version of you, bringing that aligned version of you forward as the positive male figure, not only to the people around you, but the man that you show up as every day. And for you to be able to, at the end of the day, look in the mirror and just let yourself know, I love that guy looking back at me. He's awesome and he makes me proud.
That's awesome. So if anybody's interested, where can they find that? And if this one fills up, are you going to be doing other courses moving forward?
Yeah, brother. So it is johnnyelsasser.com. You can go there, and I have a programs on the header, there's a programs link up there. You just click that, and then you can sign up for the course right there. It is only open until June 2nd. June 2nd is our introductory call. So if they don't get in by then, we'll have to possibly wait for a new one. I would like to open a new one after this as well, but we're going to see really where everything goes, and then if things need to change, or kind of how I can best serve men moving forward. So it's all about an evolution. So I can't make any promises now. So this course is what I'm hoping that guys are going to get involved in, and where I'm looking to serve guys as best as possible at this time and give them the tools they need to succeed, man.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Earlier in the episode, you talked about, and you mentioned the word accountability, and we have our clothing line and the hashtag accountabilities on everything that we have. And it's probably one of, if not our most favorite words. And I just wanted to get your perspective, especially from your military background. But what does accountability mean to you, or how do you personally define accountability?
Accountability for me is pretty much synonymous with integrity. So it's what you're doing when no one else is looking. And that is important to who you are, in my opinion, as a person, but that's important to your authenticity, because when no one's there, when you don't have the crowd in front of you and the curtains are closed, how are you showing up? And if you're showing up in a crappy way, and you're showing up as a negative person, even in those moments where you're by yourself, then that's how you're going to show up outside of that. And if you're not showing up outside of that way, you're being inauthentic, because the way that you're showing up when no one's looking is who you really are. So accountability is making sure that you hold yourself accountable to that integrity and to that honesty and authenticity in who you are every moment of your life. Because if you do, and you have that accountability in store, and you have that accountability in place, then you're able to be that best version of yourself, regardless of who it is, and you're not looking for anybody else's approval.
I love it. I think that's such a powerful definition. And the reason I love that question, not just from the selfish perspective of something that's on our clothing line, is because there is no right or wrong answer. It's not a true or false question, and every single person has a definition that's a little bit different. Of course, there are some similarities, and some of the people use similar words and things, but every single person defines it a little bit differently. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, brother. No, I love that. That's a great question.
So now we're going to change lanes into what we call our hot seat questions. The only thing we ask of you is that you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
All right, man. I'll do my best.
All right. You have one last meal, and you can absolutely choose anything you want. What do you pick?
Ooh, pasta and meatballs.
Favorite smell?
Oh, God. Hydrangeas.
Favorite. I was not thinking you were going to say that. Favorite sport?
Hockey.
All-time favorite team?
Detroit Red Wings.
All-time favorite movie?
Caddyshack.
Second favorite movie in the comedy genre?
I'll have to go with second favorite would be Step Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
I don't know if it's really a quote or a conversation, but one of my favorite ones was the one in Step Brothers when he's burying him. And he's like, "What are you doing right now?" He's like, "I'm burying you." But I'm still alive, Brennan. Shut up. You're going to wake up the neighbors. So I don't know if that's a quote.
That is a quote, and that's awesome that you were able to recite it. I appreciate that. Favorite book?
Ooh, favorite book? All-time favorite book's probably got to be the Iliad. I absolutely love it. I don't know if you've had the chance to read that.
I have, yes. A really, really good book. Favorite singer, group, or band?
Ooh, favorite singer's got to be Dierks Bentley.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, love Dierks Bentley. Dierks, if you're listening right now, I'd love to have you on the podcast, by the way. Chris did this to me, so I got to...
He listens all the time. He's one of my good buddies. He actually sings sometimes while he's listening, too. So I got to ask you, because you asked me, different question. What song that comes on the radio that no matter what it is, you turn it up louder and you sing along to it?
Oh my God. Hands down has to be, let's go Machine Head by Bush. That's definitely one that I absolutely have to rock out to.
True or false question. If Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice is on, do you sing along to it?
Oh, 100%. Who doesn't? I almost feel like you're not a human if you don't sing along to that song.
All right, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I liked you before, but now I really like you. So,
Yeah.
and then last question on the hot seat, and I'm curious about this because of your military background. So don't fault me for the wording. But if you were stuck in a foxhole and you could only have one person to have your back, who would it be?
Oh my God, one person to have my back? Probably. This might sound. Oh God, this might sound super cheesy. It's probably got to be like my wife, and that might sound crazy. She would be badass enough to like make sure I didn't get shot, and then also we could like fool around while we're in there. So it's like a combo thing for me.
I'm gonna tell you said that, so hopefully it'll work. So, if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners a little bit about where they can find you, and are you active on social media, and also your websites and things like that?
Yeah, brother. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you like giving me that opportunity. Those were really fun questions, by the way, and some tough ones, man. I thought I'd have better answers to some of this, but yeah, I don't want to be cheesy. The wife thing would actually work out pretty well, though. I think you know. Anyways, so you can find me over at johnnyelsasser.com. That's my website. I'm really active on IG at johnny.elsasser. And then you can find me on Facebook, which is The Art of Masculinity. And then I also have a podcast, which is The Art of Masculinity as well. You can shoot me messages on any of those. I always respond back. And actually, I'm going to steal something from you. Is I do love responding back to people, and I am the one that does respond in every occasion. So if you have any messages you want to send me, you can send me a personal email at johnny at johnnyelsasser.com. And I will respond back to you. Any questions you guys got, any information that you may want, or any tools you may desire, I will give you the best response I can give you. So, yeah, I appreciate it, brother.
Awesome. And then last question I have for you, we ask everybody, is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, I would just say that don't allow other people to dictate your freedom and to dictate your beliefs. You know, you have your own perceptions for a reason, and that freedom was given to you, especially in this country. And I am a huge proponent of making sure that you are authentic with yourself and always owning that person every day. So, you know, you don't need to measure yourself against other people. Your life is your life, and your success is your success. And it doesn't have to be equivalent to anybody else's. It just has to be something that you feel proud about and that empowers you. So be that person every day.
I love it. I appreciate it. And some great words to end today's episode. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, brother. No, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to episode number 269. Johnny shared some really great stuff with us today. I think it is extremely powerful how Johnny has taken a lot of what he learned from the military, and today is helping men become better versions of themselves. His parting words were absolutely spot on. Don't allow other people to dictate your freedom or beliefs, and never measure yourself against anyone. So I challenge each and every one of you to try and become a better you. Don't compare or try to be somebody else. Compete only with yourself. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.